Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Love Hour podcast. I am your host, MrsKevOnStage, and I am joined by my husband and co-host,
Kevin Fredericks.
Well,
I don't know if I like
weird.
that.
I want to throw your guys off.
It was weird.
The KevOnStage.
Yeah, that was...
Sounded like you're like an anchor.
Yeah, it was
It's the
weird.
Tonight Show with Kevin.
Walter Cronkite.
We are, if you're new to the podcast, this is your first time listening to us, thank you so much for listening and checking us out on today's episode. The Love Hour podcast is, of course, hosted, like I said, by myself and my husband. We talk about life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. We often bring on experts as we have done. Does that make sense? As we have done?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It sounded weird to say aloud. Okay, as we've done, maybe. As we've done the entire month. Actually, we've done it quite a bit, but we've done that for the entire month of February because, as you know, we dedicate February to sex. So all of the topics in the month of February talk about sex in some way, shape, or form. And that will continue, of course, with today's episode. I wanted to do things a little bit different this year than I did last year and ensure that I covered more than just like sexual intimacy and sex and kinks and that kind of thing, although I do want to do an episode on fetishes, kinks, and like BDSM.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to cover it. I think that it's an important topic to just discuss. So I don't know why I felt the need to say that, but I did. I've been looking at like one or two different experts to come on to talk about it. But that aside, so that's what we've covered, of course, for the month of February. What we are doing today is taking a little bit of a turn because a question and comment actually that comes up quite often, or a request, I should say, that comes up quite often is for me to cover sexual trauma and how that impacts relationships, specifically talking about like romantic relationships or relationships in general. And I searched high and low, and I finally found someone that I felt could do the topic justice, and she is here with us today. Her name is Natalie Gutierrez.
Yes.
Did I say it correctly?
You did.
Ooh, yeah. I am so excited to have you here. We were just talking before we went live, and I was talking about this podcast that I was listening to that covers different black public figures and their rise and fall, or just their rise. And the podcast covers Barack Obama, Oprah, and Beyonce. And so I was listening to the Oprah one, which is actually really good. And they have interviews from her. And one of the things she talks about was early on when she started the Oprah Winfrey Show, she talked about how it was really important for her to establish a very deep connection with her show. And so when guests and audience members would come back and say, "Oh my God, like I feel like I know you. It feels like really deep. Like we have this connection." And her response was, "It's because I intended it to be." And that is something that stuck with me. I listened to this podcast like mid-year last year, and it stuck with me from that moment forward. So everything that I do on this podcast and on this platform is very intentional. I always intend for it to cut deep, and I always intend for it to cut wide and talk about things that you just don't see widely talked about, or at the very least not talked about in people of the realm of people of color. It's also why you see a lot of people of color as my guests. That's also really important that I'm always representing that we're out here as well. So I'm also looking for males. So listen, we're just on a whole little tangent here, and I'm going to take my time and go there. I have been looking high and low for a male LMFT, preferably one of color, to come on this show and talk about some different things that could impact and talk to African American men. That's like super, super important to me, and I cannot find them. So if you have any, please shoot them a text, an email, or whatever, and send them my way, because I would love to have them on the show. So that aside, we have Natalie here with us. I would like to allow you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and where you're from.
Ooh, all right. I just have to, I love what you're doing.
Thank
I love
you.
how intentional you're trying to be. I think that's really important, especially giving a space for people of color to show the work that they're doing, and also to have a say in how we can help our communities and all the communities. I feel like that's really important. So I love it.
Thank
I
you.
love it. You all keep doing what you're doing. Okay, so in my intro. So I'm Natalie Gutierrez, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of New York and New Jersey. But I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in the Lower East Side before its gentrification. So now it's Hipsterville. That's not where I grew up. I didn't grow up with the hipsters. I grew up in the projects. So, and I'm very proud of that because the people that I grew up with in my community in the projects really took care of me and really taught me the humility, the power in humility, and the power of like needing to continue to help our people. So I keep that close to my heart. I specialize in folks that adult survivors of complex trauma. And so complex trauma includes sexual trauma, it includes attachment trauma, and attachment trauma just means children that have been neglected by their caregivers growing up, or children that have been beaten by their caregivers growing up, just feeling like, or having the experience of not having a secure attachment with their caregivers. So they either grow to become anxiously attached or avoidantly attached, or there's just a huge attachment rupture with these children and their caregivers, and they grow to become adults that struggle with attachment and struggle with relationships. So same as developmental trauma, poverty, which is also trauma. It's also, migrant trauma. There's trauma. There's a lot of trauma.
Tell me more about poverty.
I was just about to say, girl, can you tell us a
Migrant
little?
trauma too.
Poverty trauma is, and you see it with people in the projects, right? But even outside, where you can't afford healthcare, so you can't afford to get mental health services, you can't afford to go to the doctor. You have to get really, 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 really sick in order for you to be able to go to the doctor. It looks like not being able to eat, right? Not knowing where the next meal is going to be coming from. And so you are constantly living in a state of fight or flight. Yeah, you're in a sympathetic, you are in an activated state because you're constantly in survival mode. You are in survival mode, and all that you're thinking about is like, where am I going to get my next meal? How am I going to survive? Am I going to live to tomorrow? Am I going to be able to feed my children?
Yeah.
There's a lot of trauma in that.
Got it.
Well, just really quickly on there, I feel like that can show up later as like a scarcity mindset.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. Kevin and I were just talking about this morning, maybe, or last night.
We always talk about this.
We do, but when we were talking about the flossers.
Last night.
Okay, so this is something that literally Kevin and I were just talking about. So Kevin just bought these flossers, and he bought like 7 of them, and they come in a pack of 50. 40.
My dentist recommended them.
Why do you need 7 of 40? Like you're just from now until Jesus' return, you're gonna have these. There's no need to have this many. I just do not understand why you bought so many. And so he's like, so literally I'm looking at my cabinet because there's like a ton of them, and I'm like so irritated. And I realized in that moment how different we are. So Kevin is very much like, I need this, let me buy all of them so I'll always have them. And I am like, let me buy one and then let me use it once every other week so that way it can last as long as possible in case in the future I don't have the money to afford it again. And that's like literally, that's how I think about stuff. I'm just saying that's like the mindset that I have with stuff in general.
I think that poverty mindset can come in different ways. I think you can also, whenever you get money, you didn't used to have it, you spend it like crazy. Like when you get a tax return, you're waiting all year for that money, and you blow it. That's how I was when I got my taxes. I remember the first time I got $1,500. I was like, oh snap! And I immediately drove down to Portland and bought a $700 bass guitar, and the money was gone in like, I don't know, 2 weeks. And I was like, next year tax return, I'm gonna do this. And like every time for a while till I got married, I just would blow them. You know, and I still have friends and family who so much of their life is dependent on that tax return, and they can't buy stuff until it happens, and it'd be gone in 6 weeks most of the time. And the rest of the year is looking forward to that time.
It's so funny. I think that's the flight or flight that you were talking about, and it teaches you. We've had episodes where we talk about your money style and how much of your money style comes from, or your money story. Sorry, how much of your money story is derived from your upbringing and like how you interpreted what was going on. So not having enough and then having a whole bunch of money, so you're like, let me buy everything right now, or I grew up with not enough, and so let me hold on to it for as long as possible. It's so interesting how like the same scenario can show up in different ways,
right?
You know, to different people.
Absolutely. And I feel my husband, who will be watching, like pointing at me, like, and he's like, "You are the overspender," because that was me. That's how I did it. That's how I dealt with my poverty trauma, which is waiting for the refund checks to come through in college, waiting for those refund checks because then I could buy my, my clothes, right? Then I can like fit in. Then I don't have to look like I'm struggling while everyone else is, doing, like I can play the part, right? Yeah. I can feel like I'm enough. And that is such a trauma response.
Melissa and I don't have this shared at all. My family, we both grew up poor, but very differently. When her family didn't take vacations at all. And my grandma took us to Vegas, and we stayed at Circus, which when you're a poor kid going to Las Vegas and staying in that hotel, I thought we were rich for that weekend. So now when we travel, I do my level of Circus for my kids, but it's just life has been good and we work really hard. So that is like a first class trip to Japan. So my kids are like, if they level up to me, they're going to be flying Emirates in the residence. I don't even know what that looks like for them. And actually, I just realized that our children don't have poverty mindset. They don't, we had less version than even
freaks me out.
what you were talking about. And me and Melissa always struggle with this. And I know this isn't the point of the episode, so we always struggle with this because we're like, how do we teach our children to be grateful for everything when they've had access to everything? Like, we were grateful because we never got stuff. Like, when we went to McDonald's, it was like, McDonald's. We get a toy. We get to play in the play place. Right. Like, it wasn't an everyday thing. Like, and I remember Melissa and I were laughing about this. Picked my kids up from school and they were like, hey, want to grab some food before we get home? And they were like, yeah, let's go to Benihana's. And I was like, fam, what?
I was doing that on a Tuesday afternoon.
And they don't even go to Benihana's like that. That's like a birthday dinner, not like a Tuesday at 3:30 thing. And I realized at that moment, oh, y'all living different than we're living. So me and Melissa grew up, at least I did, I don't know if you did, sharing a room until I was in 11th grade. I shared a room every time. We have a house now that the boys have never had to share a room ever. And they share a room just because they like each other. And I'm like, fam, y'all need your room? They're like, but I'll be scared. I'll be scared a little bit. And I'm like, all we wanted was our own room. So bad. And they've had that chance forever, and they've never exercised it. So our son is going to high school. And this will be the first time, like a couple months ago, he's like, I'm ready for my own space. And it's just crazy how different they are. They don't have that poverty mindset. They don't have scarcity mindset. So we are raising them is so different than us because we're in uncharted territory, so.
That was good. It's so interesting that I didn't realize that poverty could be considered trauma, but it all makes sense. And even talking about our money story and all of that, how it all relates, is really fascinating. And Betterment has a really great question for you. How are you supposed to know what to do with your money? Very few of us are exposed to meaningful advice on how to manage our finances, especially when we're talking about our money story and you're talking about how you were raised and how that impacts you later. We grow up and we don't know what to do. Even fewer have the means to get professional financial guidance. Betterment is a platform that was built to do something radical, to give accessible financial advice that puts you first. If you're like most Americans, your money is probably sitting in a savings account, likely earning you next to nothing. Maybe you have an investment account that you're not really sure what to do with. Betterment can help you make sense of what to do with your money. Investing involves risk, but you don't have to know the ins and outs of the stock market to start saving saving more or start investing for your future. Betterment's technology will put your money to work, choosing the stocks and strategies that are right for you. Because we know you have other things to do. Betterment's platform can even provide guidance on what financial goals make sense for you. Give your money a new home with Betterment, peace of mind included. Download the Betterment app today. That's Betterment, Betterment, for the betterment of you. That's Betterment, Betterment, for the betterment of you. And this is a really great way to figure out your money story and then get on the track to saving money the way that you wish you always could. All right, so what we're going to do is quickly segue into the episode again where we're talking about trauma. So before we get into it, I have like one or two disclosures. Disclosure number one, Kevin might be a little bit muted today because we want to be responsible and sensitive to the sensitivity of this topic. So with that said, child, don't give him a hard time in the comments if he's not his normal
and I'm a little
self.
sick and tired. Not like sick and tired, but like literally sick and tired. Because I've been sick, so I've been sleeping well. So if I'm yawning, forgive me, I'm a human being. And we can't take time off of work.
Yes.
We're sick.
And
I be sick and you don't be.
I never get sick.
I be sick. I be.
Yeah,
I cannot breathe.
the last time in the 7 years we've been here, I've been sick once,
Wow.
and I had what's that
Bronchitis.
throat? Yeah, bronchitis. I'm like, what's that throat thing? I had bronchitis. I was like sick, and that was it. And even then, it took me like 3 weeks to go to the
I get sick
doctor.
all the time.
So anyway, that's our first disclosure. Our second disclosure, I'll actually let you do it. Do you want to do the second disclosure of talking about? Yeah, I think you might have the LMFT wording for it.
I think that we may touch on some topics, especially around sexual trauma, that are going to activate some people naturally. And I just want you to take the time to be gentle with yourself and to just check in with your body as you are hearing the episode. What if you're hearing like now live or even after, that you just check in with your body, that you take some deep belly breaths, that you try to just be there for if you need to pause, the episode and take a break, however that looks like. I just want to remind you to take care of yourself, because we're going to talk about some deep, hard things, and I just want to normalize that some stuff might come up for you, and that it's important to take care of yourself.
Thank you. That was great. And I've actually never done a disclosure like that. So that was really, really good. So before we get into it, I kind of want to go through some definitions. And we can talk about, we already talked about one form of trauma when you talked about the poverty mindset, or the poverty being a form of trauma. But there's sexual trauma. So maybe we can talk about the different ways that may look like. And then the attachment trauma, which we kind of talked a little bit about with Dr. Watson last week, where we talked about the avoidance attachment style, the secure attachment style, and the anxious attachment style. Do you remember that? So maybe we can go through each of those.
So as far as, I guess, just defining trauma is when you experience a situation that, I want to say, shatters your past belief about yourself, about your environment. It's a, how would I say, it's a form, it's especially, no, I was going to say especially sexual trauma, but that's wrong too, because when if your body has been violated in any way, it is this sense of a loss of a safe world as you once knew it.
Ooh, that was a great definition.
It is when everything that you knew prior to an incident of trauma is gone, it's decimated. And then there's this grief that comes along, and it comes along.
Oh, that just made me sad.
It's painful. It's painful. It's because you lose something, right? You lose your felt sense of safety, and you lose your idea of what a safe world looks like for you. And when that happens, grief comes in, and grief comes in as a tidal wave. It's like a boom, you know, it just hits you. And then there is the huge leap from having experienced a safe world to now experiencing the world as dangerous. And that is now the way that you see the world. Now you look at the world through the lens of everything is dangerous, people are dangerous. You start to become more hypervigilant. You start to anticipate the shoe's always going to drop at any moment, right? This person's always going to leave. This person's going to leave me. Everyone's going to leave me at some point. Or I'm always going to be hurt. Someone's always going to try to hurt me and take advantage of me. You are always on edge. It is hypervigilance. It is a shift in the autonomic nervous system, where like there are actually real biological, like neurological changes that happen for us, where our neurons begin to expect bad things to happen to us, and it does so to protect us. It doesn't do it to torture us. Like we're not trying to actively torture ourselves. This is all out of our own protection. Our bodies and our brains and all of that kick in to try to protect us so that we can try to evade more harm or rejection or, you know, just any sort of hurt being done to us.
Yeah. I think I don't think I suffered trauma in the way you're describing, but I think even in business, when I first moved to LA, I got taken advantage of on the business side, and it just clicked in my mind. Now I approach every business relationship as how they trying to beat me, how they trying to trick me, what's in this contract that I don't see. Like, so I can imagine that being that much more heightened if it were like a trauma that happened to me on a personal level, and even more if it was like by a family member. Like if my family could do this to me, of course a stranger or somebody I've never met, of course they're gonna do that to me because my family did this to me. My family treated me this way, so no one can treat me right because the people who I initially thought were supposed to treat me right didn't. I think even with me, with my biological father not being there, I feel like Melissa and I have talked about this at length, and I even talked about it here more on the bonus episodes than this, like having a feeling, even if it wasn't his intention, but having a feeling of I don't want you, therefore I'm leaving you, it colored a lot of my relationships like that. Like I overdo it with my children because of that, because I feel guilty that because my job requires me to travel, they're gonna feel how I felt. So I've got to spend money on them, and I gotta, you know, do this and that. And even if I'm tired, I gotta play with, you know what I mean? Because I feel like I know what it was to be that little kid who felt like this person didn't love me, and then my parents who lived in the home worked so much that they didn't attend stuff. So it's like, well, nobody cares about me. Nobody who's supposed to support me does. You know what I mean? So I've got to find that in other people, and I never really. This is why therapists are good, because you're never really understanding how you are.
How everything is built upon one another.
Yeah, like how you see the world based on how your world was built. You know, you color your own narrative through your hurts and traumas and pain, and you don't even realize that. We were talking about this on Kevin Hart's documentary. He tries so hard to be like, I'm fine with my dad, the stuff he did. I'm fine. And it's obvious he's not fine. Like he didn't even see how he's moving now because of that. And just saying you're fine doesn't mean you are. Like you're not even seeing how you act because of this. And the outside world is like, it's pretty obvious that you're not fine, and this is why you do that stuff. And I think the same can be said for me in just different ways from Kevin Hart, where I'm like, oh, that's no big deal. My real dad wasn't there, my parents did, but it's cool because of this, you know, this, that, and that.
Right, and that is classic attachment trauma. So when we're talking about defining what attachment trauma is, it is that is that. So for me, in self-disclosure, I am a survivor of sexual trauma, and I've also witnessed domestic violence in my home. So they're more common than you think. They're more common than you think, and how that affected me was. One, kind of similar to what you're saying, Kev, is the attachment on your children. For me, it was a constant intrusive memory, like something is going to happen to me, right? Because my past painful learning has taught me that something bad is going to happen to me. And so that
you're just expecting it.
Yeah, so you just expect it.
Do you become overprotective with your kids?
You're for me, I am. I am, and I have to check myself constantly, like who is in the room right now? Like, it is not just me and my children. There are more people in the room right now. And it's important that I check myself, because I also don't want to pass this down energetically to my children, right?
Sorry.
No worries. And so, but when we have this feeling, or this when our hypervigilance is telling us something bad is going to happen, we're expecting bad stuff to happen. We're never expecting good things to happen.
No.
We're never expecting to go out and find $20 on the floor.
And when good things happen, you're always expecting someone to take it away.
Yes.
It's only going to last for a little bit of time. Like me and Melissa struggled like with this career. Eventually, we're going to get canceled. The Patreon people are going to go away. YouTube is good. Something's going to happen, and we're going to be poor and broke again.
Right.
Even though nothing in life says that's true.
Right.
Because when we were little, that is what happened. We had a car, it broke down. Now we don't have a car anymore. You know, you're just, because people took stuff away from us. Nice houses, shoes, whatever. And I feel like there's so many different ways that we can't even really sit and enjoy things. Like even when we go to Japan, it's like, should we really have spent that on this? What if, whatever happens, should we really have gotten this building for a 5-year lease? What if this is silly, and I'm not trying to make this episode funny, but this is how I really think. Every year when I start stand-up comedy tours, I lose my voice a little bit, because I go from not performing that much to performing 5-6 times a week. So I always lose my voice the last 3 years in a row. Every time it happens, I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to talk again. If I can't talk, I can't tell jokes. I can't feed my family.
Right.
Every time I'm sick, what if I break my hand and I can't drive? It's just like who loses their voice completely? That's so rare. But every time I get sick, I'm like, that's it. Yeah. And this is how it starts. You know what I mean?
This is the beginning of the end.
This is the beginning of the end.
Yeah. And one thing, Kev, as you're speaking too, like what's coming up for me is I think like for folks too, especially folks of color, right? Especially Black, Indigenous people of color, there's also ancestral trauma, right? Like there's also, your family has experienced slavery. Yeah. If your family has experienced, genocide and all of that, like there are legacy burdens that we carry. Legacy burdens. There are legacy burdens that we carry that are passed down through attachment trauma, because naturally when you think about survivors of something that has been that horrific, you are going to struggle naturally with caretaking for your children and stuff like that, or however that looks like, and then that's going to affect them, and then that's going to affect them, and then that's going to affect them, and then there's also whatever, like the epigenetics and genetic changes that happen in the body. But we carry that too. Like there is the, oh my gosh, things are going to be taken away from me, not even just because of our own childhood, but also because of the legacy burdens that we've carried from our ancestors who have been murdered, right? Who have been enslaved. Like there's that too. Wow.
I think even with the police, for me, experiencing the trauma through like my own experiences with police prior to like social media, and then like these Black men dying at the hands of police. Now I remember I told this story before. I was walking to ADD a couple years ago, and there was like 6 cops on each side of the sidewalk. They were just chilling, and I had to walk through them to get to my office, and I held my breath. I was just like, oh my God, okay. Like, because all those videos play of like, what are you doing here, this and that, getting thrown up against, guns pulled on you, stuff like, luckily or thankfully I've never had a gun pulled on me by police, but I've been harassed even when I was a kid, you know what I mean? So it's amazing how you internalize stuff that hasn't even happened to you yet. Right. As if it's your body processes it as a true potential fear. Right. And in these instances, these cops weren't even doing it. They actually said, hello, good afternoon, but I'm not even seeing them. I'm just seeing those uniforms, badges, guns. Right. I'm seeing those actions and how they portrayed it, knowing that can happen to me, and preparing myself for, like, if I see a cop in back of me, I tense up every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you said earlier, what you called it an intrusive memory.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about so when you've experienced some sort of trauma, whether it be sexual trauma or whatever type of trauma, how that memory can show up in or impact maybe your relationship. And I want to kind of talk about all relationships, but also like specifically talking about like romantic relationships.
So intrusive memories are. Can I actually talk about like what it is?
Yeah, of course. I'm always here for clear definitions.
Okay. So intrusive memories are can be seen as essentially flashbacks, right? Or just it could be flashbacks, but it can also be like the thought of something bad is going to happen, right? And you just already like there's an intrusive memory of the past that says things bad have happened in your past and they're going to happen again. When it comes to in the form of flashbacks are actually the self-healing system at work. Like flashbacks
are the okay.
Yeah, and the reason why it's so is because when we have like a specific trauma that has happened to us, the amygdala, that's part of a very important part of the brain that like stores memories of trauma to help protect us. It'll scan the incident. It'll scan whatever sensory stuff that it can pick up from a trauma that you've experienced, and it stores it. And the idea is that when you experience either a smell or a sound or even just like an emotional trigger, so if someone, let's say, saying something to you that a perpetrator of violence has said to you in the past that automatically activates you, that is the amygdala. That is the beautiful workings of the amygdala that is saying, hey, this is dangerous. Remember when this happened in the past, or when this person said this? So the amygdala sees this energy of the trauma. Like I said, it just takes the sensory and stuff. It doesn't really like process it narratively. There's no narrative of it. So it just gets stored as like fragmented energy and stuff. And like I'll just say like fragmented just energy and oh sorry, I'm trying to think, where was I going? Oh yes. So the reason why I'm saying that flashbacks are the self-healing system at work is because when we're having this like thought that just comes into our mind and we're like, where's that coming from? Or like, why is this happening? It's essentially our brain giving us a file that's saying like, I need you to actually process this. Like I need you to actually like this hasn't been processed. This doesn't have a narrative. You're just having these experiences in your body, but you're not understanding why. And I just need you to like pay attention to me. I need you to give words to this experience. I need you to connect the dots. Does that make sense?
It does. So okay. So my question then is, I could see how this is like really helpful and healthy, but can the, what did you call it? The amygdala?
The amygdala.
Amygdala. Can it become overactive?
Heck yeah.
And so where you're just like, this isn't even that. Like, I just want, like, I could see it becoming so active that you become frustrated because maybe you're trying to live a quote unquote normal life, but you feel like everything is triggering to you. Yeah. So how do you balance, and maybe it's the narrative part. I actually thought that was really important, that maybe you haven't associated a narrative where you could say, okay, so sensory wise, maybe it's the lights, or maybe it's the pans, or maybe it's whatever is like triggering this memory, but in this moment I am safe. Right. In that, like, so you understand what's happening in your body, but now you've associated your own narrative so you can move forward. Okay, finish, because I'm making up stuff.
So no, you got it. Okay. That's exactly it. That the amygdala is just like giving us files. It's like, oh yeah, remember that smell? That's from this. Remember this? That's from this. It's doing nothing else, but it's not even saying like, but you're actually not in danger because this is not the person. Da 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 da. It's just like, this smells associated with that. This, and so it is. The only job that it's doing is just giving us the files. Then our body starts to respond to it. Our body goes into this fight or flight. So that's when we start like, we become really activated. And then we start navigating to like just different states from being in a fight or flight. And if we're there too long, we can go into a shutdown. So being in, I guess I feel like I'm not being as clear. When we're in a fight or flight response, like when we're in a sympathetic nervous system response, our heart starts to beat faster. We start to maybe sweat. Our blood pressure rises. There are actual like body changes that happen. We get sick. Our digestion system turns off, and so does the reproductive system. Like that part is all shut down because it's just worried. It just wants us to either fight and get out of whatever situation we're in, or avoid it completely.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so that either, like if you, in a relationship, to answer your question, how that looks like when you're in an activated state is you either start fighting with your partner or you're like, I don't even want to talk to you.
Yep.
It becomes like this pursuer distancer relationship or dynamic where it is just like, I cannot even talk to you and I'm just shut down. That withdrawn person who like doesn't say anything, who's just completely like I don't care, whatever, do whatever it is that you want. That is a shutdown mode. And when you're in a sympathetic for too long, you will naturally go into a shutdown mode.
So when you say a sympathetic mode, what does that mean?
Like a fight or flight response.
Okay, so that's
when
the
you're
same.
like super activated.
Okay.
When your heart is like,
Okay.
when you're anxious, when you're angry. These are when you're experiencing hyperarousal. You are in a sympathetic nervous system state. You are in a fight or flight.
Got it.
And when your heart slows down, but it slows down for not a good reason because you're shut down, you are in a shutdown state. You are numb.
Got it.
You can even dissociate. There are people that will just, dissociate. And you can't have a relationship like that, right?
Yeah.
When someone is just completely withdrawn and numb. And that happens a lot with trauma. When people
Is it because, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is it because you haven't processed it that you shut down? Like you're, like, I feel like your brain is maybe on overload.
Yeah.
And so
your
it's
brain's
just
like, I
too
can't.
much.
Right. It's like the circuit
Turn
breaker.
off.
It's like the circuit breaker. If there's too much energy, like you have too much stuff on at the same
I
time.
believe that.
That's a good analogy.
It is. And my sister, one thing that she always says was when she gets overwhelmed and she's just like, I don't know what to do and I have so much to do. She's like, I just take a nap.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what your body's like. We're done. Fuck it out here. I'm done.
Professional procrastinators, absolutely. You have 1,001 things to do. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna nap.
Those are the best naps too. The naps when you have a whole bunch of stuff to do and you be like, but how about sleep though?
Yeah.
You be like, best sleep in the world.
Yeah. While we're talking about napping really quickly, I want to tell you about one way to also get some energy, and that is through Ritual. What better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps with your diet with Essential for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/lovehour to start your Ritual today and get 10% off during the first 3 months at ritual.com/lovehour. They have everything from D3 to omega-3. Ritual's Essential for Women helps to fill in the gaps for your diet. Women are always more prone to like osteoporosis and like different bone things and different things like that. So it's always important to get your vitamins and those type of things from as many sources as possible. I also want to tell you about Glossier. I actually have their lip gloss thing. It's like a multifaceted thing. It's like a tube and you can use it for like ash on your hands and for your lips. It's amazing. I use it all of the time for my kids and for Kevin's ashy elbows. It is fantastic. People are always asking me about my glowy skin and what I do. I always say that you can't prime your skin into a healthy glow. It's all about your skincare. And Glossier's top sell, they have what is it called? Hyaluronic acid is the word I'm looking for, and it helps to moisturize your skin. It's really, really good stuff actually. And they have a milk jelly cleanser. It's the perfect way to start off your skincare routine. The pH balance formula has a blend of 5 skincare conditioners, dermatologist tested, hypoallergenic, non-irritating, cruelty and paraben free. Get that glowy, dewy skin for yourself by visiting glossier.com/podcast/love. Learn more and take the quiz to find out your ultimate Glossier skincare routine. Plus, all new customers will get 10% off their first order if you go to glossier.com/podcast/love.
/podcast/love.
I know. Again, that's Glossier. That's spelled GLOSSIER.com/podcast/love. Certain exclusions may apply, and I'll link the hyaluronic acid that I've been using because I think you guys would love it. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Okay, so I want to dive back in. I needed to break that up really quickly, but I wanted to dive back in because one thing that we keep talking about are the like how it affects you. And so can you give people what do we call it? Ways to mitigate those responses in your relationship, so you feel like you don't have to. I don't know if be a victim is maybe the best terminology, but where you don't have to be a victim or you don't have to succumb to the moment of those flashbacks. Because I feel like you might feel like they like arrest you in the moment and there's nothing you can do. Okay.
Entirely. Yeah, you are being like re-victimized. That is what is happening. It's happening all over again. And then essentially what's happening
I like that wording.
Especially with sexual trauma, if it's affecting your relationship, both, outside of the bedroom and in the bedroom, it's important that we energetically keep the perpetrator or perpetrators of violence away from contaminating the bedroom.
Say it again.
That we energetically keep.
What do you mean by energetically?
That our spouses, right, or partners, that they're not our perpetrators.
Got it.
Right? I mean, unless you are, right?
Yeah.
Unless they are, but that any sort of inhibition, to have sex, any sort of like just fear of having sex, that if, for survivors of sexual trauma, that this is how their sexual trauma is getting in the way of them actually having a closer, deeper connection with their partner or partners, because you don't want to exclude. And so part of it is what I tell people is it's important that we keep our perpetrators away, like from our bedroom, that we keep them out, so that they don't contaminate our bedroom.
Got it.
That you close the door. And how that looks like is really vulnerability. Vulnerability is the antithesis of being in a trauma state.
Oh.
Ironically, it's also what
it seems like that would be the hardest thing to do.
It is super. It is because it's vulnerability is super hard, because when survivors were, violated, they were vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah.
But in order to reclaim, you need to reclaim your vulnerability and your desire to want to be seen and experienced by your partner 100%. And I think that is the fear that so many survivors have when they're having sex with their partner, but even again outside of the bedroom, that we are so afraid. We're so afraid to want our partner, because to want our partner on a deep level, what happens when we want? We might lose them. Yeah,
that's emotional exposure.
Yes. We might lose them. We might be hurt, right? Again, perceived threat. But also, they might see us. When it's, especially for survivors of trauma, it's hard to have sex with partners that actually know more about you than what you want them to know. You are that, and that is where you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
When you're looking into somebody's eyes and you're sharing something, like you're exchanging energy, but you're also like, it's like soul to soul, spirit to spirit.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
And especially if that's ever weaponized against you.
Yes.
Then it's nearly impossible. I'm grateful Melissa's never done that, but I've had male friends who like, man, I told my wife or my girlfriend some of my deepest, darkest secrets, and then when we got in an argument, she brought it up and threw it in my face, and that was like the last time I was ever able to open up to her, because it's like you took me at a vulnerable state and you used my vulnerability against me. Now my body's like, see what happens when you do that? This is why you can't, why you can't do that. And that happens a lot.
Yeah. This is why you can't trust people, right?
Yeah.
This is why you can't open up at 100%, because they're going to hurt you in the end. And so how does that affect relationships? You're not truly connected with somebody at 100.
I feel like the biggest, maybe internal tug of war with that is maybe recognizing that I'm not as close with my partner as I want to be, because I can't, I'm not going to be, or I'm not vulnerable with you. But the other half of you is like, also, you're not vulnerable for a reason, because remember? So how do you reconcile? I mean, it's valid. You know what I mean? Like the idea of being hyper vigilant is valid, because you were violated.
Right.
But also you're in this safe space where it's okay. So how do you reconcile those two like opposing arguments?
Yeah. And I think a lot of this, you can't think yourself out of this. Like you can't tell yourself like, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. I guess maybe you could. It's not going to be as helpful. I think before you tell yourself, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe, or even hearing it from someone else, hearing it from your partner by saying like, you're safe with me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not here to hurt you. Like, I love you and like, I see you.
Yeah.
Right.
Even before hearing that, to have it really sink in, we need to deactivate this threat response.
Okay.
Because it's natural that we're all going to perceive our partners as threats when we are at our most vulnerable with
Right.
them, right? So we have to bring it back to the body. That's like step one, because that is where the
memory is
trauma
held.
stored. That's where all of it, you know, Bessel van der Kolk wrote a book, The Body Keeps the Score, and that is it. The trauma memories are here. They're all, our bodies remember it. And so we need to be able to reintroduce safety to ourselves. We have to give ourselves safety. And also, like a safe body. Because if we're in an activated state for a long period of time, like, can you imagine if your heart is constantly beating
That's
faster,
just-
there are long-term health consequences for
Absolutely.
you
Stress.
that are waiting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is not good. There are
I believe
cardiovascular issues that can happen. So, what I find to be very effective, and it sounds super basic, but like really bringing it back to the breath, because the breath, especially deep belly breathing, not the chest breathing that we do as adults, but like the infant diaphragmatic breathing that they engage in, that we bring it back to the breath, because when we're breathing from our belly, we're breathing like with our body.
Okay.
And that helps to slow down the heart rate. What's the opposite of tense muscles?
Relax.
Thank you.
Untense.
Yeah, untense your muscles. Relax your muscles. The more that you do that, you cannot be in an activated state with
Relax.
relaxed
Yeah.
muscles.
Yeah.
You cannot be in an activated state. So you need to release the tension in your muscles. You need to breathe into your body and slow down your heart rate. Once you're providing safety and like centeredness and groundedness for yourself in your body, that's when you can I like to put my hand over my heart and I just remind myself, like, I'm safe. I'm not in danger right now.
Yeah.
Nobody here is going to hurt me. I'm all right. I'm safe. And yeah.
I don't know why I'm so emotional.
Don't
Okay, keep
touch
going.
her. Do not rub her back. She will smack your arm off.
I know. I don't know why that was so emotional for me.
Because
Keep
it's
going.
so
It's a newer
powerful.
network.
Because it's so powerful, and survivors do not hear it. They do not hear it as much. They don't tell it to themselves,
Yeah.
and other people don't tell it to them. And so you're walking around like, I think of my clients, and I mean, I've done a lot of years of work in therapy, but even then, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm still human, right? I still suffer. There is a pain that happens when you walk around feeling like you cannot trust everyone.
Yeah.
That even, Kev, you were saying earlier about that, you know, things can be taken away, right? Or not even things that, not that things could be taken away, but that when people do kind things for you, that you automatically feel like,
They're trying to get something. They're
Right.
trying to do something. They're trying to beat me in
It's
some
all
way.
cynical.
and that is also what survivors of sexual trauma experience, because when you think about it, many times for survivors that were abused as children, it has started with grooming, where a trusted adult has groomed them.
Yeah.
And so there is this reward and then a punishment. And so now that gets imprinted in our body,
Yeah.
right? That gets stored in our body, amygdala stores it. And so
Yeah.
now someone does something nice for you and you're like, at some point this person is going to hurt me.
So, you know, this is a funny thing that I'm sorry. In Major Payne, the movie, have you seen Major Payne? So he's this military general who's been through all this war and stuff. And this little kid just loves him. Like, he's like a 5-year-old kid. And he's trying to give him a hug. and he like puts the kid in the headlock. He's like, "What's your angle, boy?" And the girl's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, he's just like, he's trained that everyone who tries to get you is trying to hurt you, so he can't even process it from a child. And I think that it reminded me of Antoine Fisher. Like he's just like, everybody is an enemy. You're just perceiving everything as an enemy, a perceived threat, and which is worse is you're not even sure what their angle is.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can never fully relax.
Right.
You know, you can't even.
Right.
I was there's this NFL players. They cheat on their wives and stuff, and they can never fall asleep because you fall asleep. The girl takes pictures of you. This happened to Julian Edelman or something like that. And I was being double. We were talking about this one day, and I was like, there's such a peace about being able to fall asleep around someone you trust because you. If you're like, being asleep is the most vulnerable you can be.
Right.
And Melissa was telling me this is so weird. Like, she cannot fall asleep in Ubers because she doesn't feel like I be knocked clean out. Because I'm not like, what, you ain't gonna whoop me? Like, I assess these people like, fam, I'm gonna sleep. She's like, I cannot fall asleep because she cannot bring herself to be in a relaxed, vulnerable state around a stranger, right? And I just think that's so interesting what you're saying of like, there's so many different ways that you process life when you've had trauma in all these different ways. Honestly, I didn't know this episode was going to be like this. I thought it was going to be like, sexual trauma and rape, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, some stuff I don't know nothing about. But you talking about stuff I know a lot about. And I'm like, dang, man, how am I processing things? How do I see trauma? How am I like holding tension in my life? What am I seeing as perceived threat? Especially as our career. I'm going to share something that I don't really share. As our career progresses, people that we love are seeing us as a monetary outlet with no relationship. And it's making me feel a little cynical because I'm like, fam, you don't even hit me up for nothing, but you got no problem hitting me up for cash. Like, you don't even talk to me. You know what I mean? So it's making me more closed off to people that are not like people like Josh, who I know were my friends prior and would be my friends after. Fine. Other people, I'm like, there's only so close I'll allow a new person in because I'm like, Major Pain, like, what's your angle? What are you trying to get from me? How are you trying to take away what I've worked for? Are you trying to blackmail me? Are you trying to get the key to my office? You know, are you trying to tag along and get followers from me? Like, I don't feel that people are being my friends, or I don't even allow them to be my friends on a genuine basis because I've seen how this has happened to other people, and especially my friends in the industry. Like, man, it's like, people say you change, and what really happens is the people around you change, and then you change in response to that, as opposed to you changing. Oh, I got money, don't hit me up. It's like, no, man. Here's the last thing I'll say: people don't even know what we have or don't have. They just see a blue check mark and like, okay, you gotta be rich. Help me. Like, fam, you realize we got this out the mud? Nobody was there to help us when we came from LA to LA from Washington. We were not sure it was gonna work. When we couldn't go back home, we rented out our house. We couldn't go to our parents' house. So we were like, here goes. And for people to be like, now give me some money now that you worked hard, like, no. Because what if I get canceled? What if I become Sinbad? Like, Sinbad had a lie, and then he didn't get cast in no movies. He lied. So I be thinking about that. All right. That's what I was saying.
All facts. I'm taking it all in because, like, it's even, like, your success is activating a part of them. That is like... we want some of that, and like there's these assumptions that you are and I so actually, and you're bringing up a point that I something that I feel like I want to emphasize, which is that and especially with vulnerability, I do not advocate for survivors of any sort of trauma to be vulnerable with the world, because the world isn't entirely safe. You cannot trust everybody, right? This is not like become, the world's best social butterfly and like befriend everyone and that's it. But that you get to protect yourself. But the people that have shown that are there for you, that are, like this ride or die, right? Like that are there, that see you, that want to see you and stand by you, that you can't overprotect yourself from them. If you want to seek revenge on your perpetrators of violence, the best revenge is your healing. The best revenge is you reclaiming your life back. The best revenge is you allowing people to love you and see you, and that you love in return.
That's awesome, because then you're not held captive.
Yes.
To
that don't sound like
happened.
good revenge. I want to make you pay.
Yeah.
How can I make you pay while I'm just like enjoying my life? That ain't revenge.
Because they don't get to control your autonomic nervous system anymore. They don't get to do that. You do that now. Like, you have the power to control everything in your body, and you get to say, I'm not gonna be in your like web anymore. I'm not gonna be attached to you in this way.
Yeah.
And that you get to give yourself the life that you very well deserve, and that you get to receive love, and that you get to be seen.
Yeah.
Because we need that. And that you get to give yourself a safe body. That you get to give yourself a safe body. That was taken from you, and you reclaim it and you take it back.
So so in the moment, because I love the idea of giving yourself like a safe body, in the moment of, you're trying to be intimate with your partner, and you feel a reaction becoming, or feel yourself becoming activated, it's the word that you were using. How do you take a deep breath in, like how do you like recenter yourself to be present in the moment, and that this is a safe, like what are some like practical steps people can do?
I would even prior to having sex, I would even start scanning my body, like from the top of my head to the tip of my toe, and just see where tension is. Like wherever there's tension stored, you're in an activated state. And we can be like that all the time. Like, my jaw, this is my hot spot for me. Like I do this a lot. And so like I have to check. Now. Yeah. And so I have to check myself and say, okay, like this for a long period of time is going to erode my teeth, right? It is not good. And so like calming my scanning my chest, scanning just my shoulders, and doing all that, and like really like giving our body kind of like a wet noodle, that just like super like floppy. What is it, floppy? Yeah. Floppy. And so making our body, just like scanning our body even before sex, and like just kind of giving ourselves, or ensuring that there is no tension in your body. Because if there's tension in your body, you're perceiving threat. And then if you're having sex with your partner and you are in a threat response, you're not really enjoying it, right?
Yeah.
That's good. I think that's good even for people, maybe that didn't necessarily experience trauma, but it's just a good way to kind of be in your body. So like doing that scan of like, how am I feeling? Where am I storing tension? What's going on with me? And I think it's really important for people to be in tune with their own body. So that's a great way to do that.
And then like that's like step one. Like after you finish and you're making sure that there's no tension anywhere in your body, that then you can tell yourself like, I'm safe. And that maybe even then you bring your partner into this, and that your partner remind you like, I'm safe. I'm here for you, and I'm safe. And that if it
can
helps,
they use those words, or those like good words to use? Okay.
Yeah, and that's one idea, but also even a safe word. Sometimes people prefer like a safe word, a stop word if it becomes too much and they're activated. But the idea is that you allow. Oh, something is coming up that feels important to say, but that you allow yourself permission to enjoy sex with your partner. That you give yourself permission to like have peak pleasure and enjoy sex with your partner. And I'm realizing too, what I forgot to say earlier was that I think one of the reasons why survivors of sexual trauma are either consciously or unconsciously afraid of enjoying sex with their partners is because there is like this belief narrative that if they enjoy sex, it's kind of like they are the perpetrator of violence, or like that somehow they are giving in. Yeah, exactly. Like that now, because the sexual trauma that has happened in the past, and who knows, I don't know what internalized messages they've had from people in their families or so that have not believed them or have blamed them and stuff like that. You know, society blames a lot of survivors of sexual trauma.
Right.
So there is already the narrative too of that they're carrying, the shame and all of that they're carrying about themselves, that is also impeding them feeling like they can allow themselves and give themselves the permission to have sex, because to enjoy sex is like enjoying your abuse.
That's so much sense.
And that was a powerful connection. I really hope that that people who have experienced sexual trauma, I feel like that may have been like a healing nugget to recognize that to give yourself permission to enjoy sex does not in any way associate you with the trauma that occurred and making you that, you know, the perpetrator, or that you deserved it, or you know, whatever narrative you tell yourself. I feel like that might be an important nugget for people to hear, a really important nugget for people to hear that I most definitely couldn't have articulated any better than you said it. So that was really good. Yeah.
I just want folks to really, it's important to me, and in my work with my own clients, many of them who are also survivors of sexual trauma, that they extend to themselves compassion, that the goal is to shift the shame that they carry into compassion, that they get to say, you know, I understand why I protect myself with my partner. I understand why I protect myself with my friends. Of course, how could I not? All this stuff happened to me in my past. Of course, I'm going to be more on edge. Of course, I'm going to be kind of just, I'm going to struggle with trust. Of course. And I think that is like a step one, that you actually begin to understand your own internal process, that you begin to like understand and show up for yourself with love and gentleness.
When you just did that, it reminded me of when we had Emily Nagoski on, and I was talking about like, how can I do better about this and like kind of control this? And she was like, nope. What you need to do is say basically what you said, like, I understand why I'm this way, and it is okay, and I accept myself, you know, as is with all of this that's going on, and it doesn't make me wrong or, you know, flawed or whatever. Recognizing that your body is set up to protect yourself, like to protect you, and so all of these mechanisms that are within you aren't wrong, they're not bad, they're there for a reason. It's just learning to accept it, and then recognizing, thank you, body, but in this moment it's safe.
Yes, I love that. I love how, thank you, right? Like, I appreciate the times that you try to protect me when I need protection.
Right.
No, but you're good, bro. I got it.
But I need you to have a seat. I need you to rest. Rest, because I got it from here.
That, I mean, essentially that's what she said. I think that's so powerful for people to hear of any sort of trauma, or anytime you feel captivated, or I don't know if captivated is the right word, but arrested by your trauma, being able to say, no, body, like, thank you. I know that, like, you always got me and you're trying to protect me, but in this moment, what I need you to do is rest. Have a seat over there, because I'm in a safe space with my partner, and I want to have the opportunity to enjoy this moment.
And I've had people speak to their, like, inner child, like the part of them, whatever age that they were sexually abused as children, and say to that part of them, thank you. Like, thank you for doing whatever and everything that you needed to do for me to get to where I am today. Thank you for saving me. Thank you.
Powerful.
Thank you for bringing me to this moment. And I want you to rest now. I got this. I'm about to cry too. Like, I got this, and now it's my turn to protect you. But our little children don't belong in our adult relationships.
Oh, that's so good.
And they need rest.
You okay, Kev?
I'm not gonna feel that feeling. I start talking to little Kev, I'm gonna be an ugly mess. I cried in too many podcasts in February.
I know.
And I saw little Kev, and they're like, "Why my dad ain't there?" And I'll be like, "Nope, little Kev, shut up. You play with those little cap guns, and you're gonna be fine."
Oh man, that was a really powerful moment. Okay, so on that note, we're gonna take a break. So we took a break because we want to tell you really quickly about Blue Chew. As you know, Blue Chew is a friend of the podcast. We absolutely love and enjoy Blue Chew. They're the first chewable tablet with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis. Blue Chew is prescribed online by licensed physicians, so you don't have to go to the doctor's office or wait in line at the pharmacy. It ships right to your door in a very discreet package. Right now we have a very special offer for our listeners. Visit bluechew.com and get your first shipment for free when you use our promo code LOVE. Just pay $5 for shipping. Again, that's Blue Chew, blue like the color, BLUE, chew.com. Use promo code LOVE to try it for free. While we're here, let's just talk about, we have our Love Hour podcast package, and Blue Chew goes in there. They are Love Hour podcast approved. Have a good night tonight or any night when you use Blue Chew. Go to bluechew.com, promo code LOVE. Try it for free. Just pay $5 for shipping. Thank you guys so much. Now back to the episode. Kev.
So the thing that I tried not to engage with you on is that little kid, all right? It is insane to me how much we carry that into our adult lives in so many different ways. And it's like why we try so hard with our children to give them voices and things like that. But man, if you don't deal with that little, it's kind of, have you watched the show Dexter?
No.
Okay,
no,
so
I'm terrible with shows.
It's fine. He had what his dad called a dark passenger, and it was like this dark energy that he carried with him throughout his life. And I feel like in some ways that little kid is kind of like our dark passenger. It's like always reminding us of what happened, what it used to be like, and it kind of prevents us from living life to its fullest potential if left undealt with. Like if you don't, like what you said is like a very practical way of like dealing with that previous very real trauma that previous version of you had to live. And I think what I'm hearing is you've got to really deal with that within yourself to allow yourself to be free from that, and therefore to enjoy the next part of your life, whether it's sexual trauma, emotional trauma, whatever that issue is. Like in some ways, even me, I'm still carrying that. Who is going, like, okay, this is silly, but it's not, because it's very real. I always have this underlying fear that Melissa's going to leave me too, right? Like she's gonna cheat on me. I you know what I mean? Like I used to go through her phone, and I never knew where it was coming from. And I think now it kind of clicked, like maybe it's because my people that I needed to be there
anxiously attached.
They weren't there. So now this person who I've given everything, like been completely vulnerable with, I'm like worried, like what if that person does what these people did, because this is the only person that I've loved with this much love that I love these other people with. So I'm kind of like waiting for that other shoe to drop, what is she going to do? It's silly because she hasn't done anything to warrant that. Like not even a hint of a whisper of a LaCroix soda, tints of a strawberry. But in my mind, it is a very real possibility, even though she has given me no reason to believe that's true.
Can I say something that
Emily said? Make me cry. You say something else.
It might make you cry a little bit, but I think instead of telling yourself it's silly, you should tell yourself thank you. Ooh. Yes.
Thank me for
because
what?
That's what we just learned, that your body is trying to protect you from being hurt, and then you just tell it to have a seat, though. Like you should really say, instead of saying like, that's silly, I really shouldn't do that, because that's beating yourself up. And it's, Emily said this too, it's judging yourself.
Yeah.
So don't judge the action, just like let it be truth, but acknowledge it as like, thank you for reminding me that hurt is real in the world. But this person I can be safe with. I'm safe with, my feelings are safe with this person. I'm allowed to be vulnerable with this person. I don't have to do these things and like have up all these safeguards and all this armor with this person.
Well, you know what's interesting about this too? This is a very cliche in superhero stories, but it happens in real life. People like, have you seen Logan? I do a lot of movie references and TV shows.
She hasn't seen it. Just
okay, she ain't seen nothing. So this is a very common trope in superhero stories. I am bad. therefore I don't deserve love
Yeah.
because something happened to me. So when people try to love me, I'm going to push them away first before they have a chance to push me away.
Yeah.
Right? And that happens in movies all the time. And I think that happens in people's real lives.
Yes.
Like, honestly, unbeknownst to them. Like, they push people away, and then when they push them away, they're like, see, that's why that person left me.
Right.
And it's why I don't let anybody get close. And like, and they take themselves out of the equation, the action that pushed that person away, and they only remember that we're broken up now.
Yeah.
And this is why I can never have nice things, because people always leave me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I love how you're saying that too, because that shows like the terror of intimacy. That the solution of I'm gonna just like create this self-fulfilling prophecy for myself.
Yeah.
So that way it feels predictable.
Right.
And if it's predictable and familiar, I can control it.
You know what? Okay, so here's one thing I think interesting. So we talk about, like, you talk about domestic violence earlier, right? And a lot of female friends that I've had, they've been in domestic violent relationships multiple times. And it's like, I was talking to my homegirl about it this years ago. And I was like, well, do you think you're choosing these men? And she was like, honestly, sometimes I provoke these things because I had so much dysfunction. Like, when things are too like nice for long, it feels unfamiliar, and like chaos is more familiar.
Yeah.
So she was like, I'll provoke something because that feels more normal. And therefore she ends up having those same relationships again.
Yeah.
Another friend of mine, she got cheated on one time legit, and then every time she thought every guy was gonna cheat on her, so she would like drive them crazy, and then when they try to break up with her, she wouldn't let them, so they end up cheating on her. And then she's like, this is what I be talking about. This is why I always get cheated on. And I just think this is one of the reasons why therapy is so valuable, is because we are repeating behaviors because we don't know the origin of them.
Yeah.
We just feel like we're doing the same thing, but we're actually repeating the actions that determine that same outcome without realizing it.
It's a reflexive response, right? Doctor hits your knee and you go like this. It's not a conscious choice. You're just navigating with what you know, with what's been modeled to you, what you've experienced. That is all you know, and so you're going to continue to do as you know until you learn differently and decide, make a conscious choice and be intentional about doing differently, about being intentional about your relationships, being intentional about your healing, being intentional about the dynamics that you are also bringing into the spaces that you have with other people, and how your own trauma is also coming into the room, and how their trauma is also coming into the room.
Do you think people don't visit therapists or don't do this because navigating those feelings is too hard?
Yeah.
Because the last year and a half I've been trying to feel my feelings. So old Kevin, married to Melissa, I could not be vulnerable, and it was okay, right? In order to move to the next phase of our marriage, I had to be vulnerable. So now Melissa, against me and everything I want her to do, has been on some feel your feelings. Now I be crying all over the place.
Yes.
Even more. Like I was looking at an episode, like last summer we were at Jay's house. It's not just the internet. Like, it's how I take the world, my own world, and apply it to all my relationships. Not just my relationship with Melissa, it's my relationship with my audience, myself, coworkers, people. It's all of that. It's a lot.
And that's why a lot of people are afraid to go into therapy, because they're afraid. Everyone's like, I'm gonna drown in my tears. Like when I started my therapy, my therapist would just say, "Why aren't you crying?" And I was just like, not doing it. Not doing it, because if I cry, I'm not gonna stop.
Yeah.
And then I started getting to the point of crying, and the wind would just blow a different direction. I was just like, oh, why? Like, it was going this way, and now it's going this way. Why? And it was all like unpredictable, and it was just grief. That's grief. That is uncried tears. That is years of uncried tears that are finally like
uncried tears,
freedom, and are just coming out. Yeah, I
have freaking silos of years, servers full, freaking farms of uncried tears. They're like, man, we never. Hold up. We come out. I'm crying about stuff I should have cried about in 2003.
Right.
That I just pushed through a lot on, and that's honestly my fear.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna find out about myself in there.
Right.
and I'm almost afraid of what that person might become. So I call the therapist, like, oh, they didn't answer, no message. See, I tried.
Did it?
I called, they did not answer. That's not my fault. They didn't want to look. I called at 11:33 at night. Like, well, looks like they're closed. I can never be therapized.
Don't take Kevin's advice. Go to therapy, people. I have a question for you. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was gonna say there's a quote by Anais Nin that I hope I don't mess up, but it talks about that there comes a point where the rosebud is it's more painful for the rosebud to stay in its bud than the risk it takes to bloom. Somebody Google it. The quote is much better.
The rosebud be growing, it be hard, but also it be good.
Are you pulling it up, Kev?
I'm pulling it up, yeah.
But it talks about just that at some point we are faced with, am I going to just stay in this pain that I've known all my entire life? Or am I going to just take this risk of the unknown that is super scary, but right now the pain of staying as is and stagnant and stuck is way more painful and I'm losing everything.
Okay, here it is. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom.
I'm happy they used the word risk because that's what I wanted to add.
Yes.
Anais Nin.
Yes.
I love that.
That is good.
Yeah, that's good. So I think we're going to end on
Thank
this.
you, Jesus, I made it.
Yes, we made it. I cried 4 times in this
I had
episode.
tension in my shoulders the whole episode.
I need to look.
Sympathetic nervous system.
I don't know what is it called when you always feel for other people? Empath.
Empath, yeah.
I feel like I might be that because I be crying for other people's stuff.
Make a good therapist.
I want to do it one day. Okay, but my last question is, I think I do. I really do. I
fully support
genuinely
you
love
in this
this
venture.
stuff. I just enjoy it.
You can therapist me.
If you are the partner of someone who has experienced trauma, sexual trauma, what are some things that person can do to help aid their partner? And maybe there's nothing. I think I always want to be very careful about applying a lot of ownership to someone else in someone else's journey of healing journey. I'm always very mindful of that, but at the same time I'm sure there are some things that the person can do that can offer support or something like that. So what are some things they can do?
I think definitely, when it comes to sex, not pressuring your partner to have sex if they're feeling afraid or not ready, that you maybe even sit with them and that you say, hey, do you want to breathe together? Do you want to breathe together? Let's engage in this moment where the idea is, if sexual intimacy feels too scary, then what else can we do? What are the building blocks toward feeling safe in the bed?
I like that.
I love that.
I love that.
Let me tell you just really quickly why I just want to take a moment to say why I love this idea. Because it's about creating an environment of safety.
Yes.
And if I'm in a moment where I feel activated and you're just oh, well, and you leave, child, everything in me is you're not safe, this isn't safe, and the next time around, and now I'm creating a narrative about our relationship.
Hey, I think we both know.
Yeah. I didn't say I didn't know music.
And so I think the idea of experiencing intimacy in that moment that's not sexual is still really powerful and something that you can reap dividends on later.
Yes.
So
building
good.
blocks of trust
And
and safety.
even when I was in couples therapy with my husband, what we did soul gazing. So our therapist had us just sit next to each other and just look at each other's eyes. And, we were laughing at each other because of course I'm comfortable and they're seeing me. But at some point you just you start just tearing.
Yeah.
You start just I really see you and I feel you and you feel me, and that also
Powerful.
That is a practice where you don't have to be having sex, but just creating these building blocks, creating a safe environment to foster the trust.
Absolutely. So good. Anything else?
And just reminding them too, that I'm safe, that you are safe with them. And that, that could look even weekly or whatever, monthly check-ins on how's this relationship going, what can I do to support you, more. That can look like going to a trauma-informed couples therapist. That can look like, the idea is to try to connect. I kind of feel like I'm going, but the idea is to connect with somebody on a safe level. And
safe,
of course,
intimate, but non-sexual.
Right,
level.
Exactly. And of course, to respect, like I said, when they don't want to, that it's important that just because you're their partner or their spouse, that you don't feel like you are entitled to them to have sex with you. And because that is important, because the survivor might feel like they're obligated to have sex with you. So you ensure that you have their consent. Yeah. Is important when it comes to...
And you were talking off camera about active consent.
Yes.
Eager consent?
Yes, eager.
What is that?
So that the survivor of sexual trauma might feel like, I have to do it with my partner because it's just something that we have to do. It's like partners. I have to just do it, right? To be a good, whatever, husband or a good wife. Or
I got to take the trash out in order to have more trash to put in.
Exactly. And so that is not real consent. Like that is just like...
obligation.
Yeah. But real consent is like, yes, like let's do this. Like I want to enjoy you. I want to like envelop, like let's do this. That is eager consent, and that is the consent we're looking for.
So good. We covered a lot. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, no, we did cover a lot. I think I want to end on this note, but I do want to give you the platform to share anything that you feel is important that maybe we didn't hit on. And then from there, you can give like your social media information for people who are interested in following you or connecting with you.
I just want to say, I really just have a message in general that, your trauma is not your fault, right? You didn't ask for it. It isn't your fault at all. And I think it's important, going back to what I said before, to extend yourself that love and that compassion. And to remind yourself it isn't your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. Your healing is your responsibility. And at the end of the day, you feel more empowered and you reclaim your life, and you deserve that. And you're worthy of that. You are worthy of joy. You are worthy of happiness, and you're worthy of feeling like no one's going to rob you from it, or no one's going to take your joy or your happiness away from you. That you deserve to receive love, and that you're worthy of it.
So good.
I think that's my message.
So good.
And my Instagram is Natalie Gutierrez, LMFT. Yes, at Natalie Gutierrez, LMFT. I don't have a Facebook or anything like that. Just too much. So I just think basic IG.
And I will make sure to have all of her information in the description box as well for everyone who is interested. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
This has been one of the most impactful episodes I think we've had, and I think we did it justice. So thank you so very much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me and for believing that I could send the message.
Yeah, this was phenomenal. Thank you guys for joining us today on this episode. I think this is not the last episode of February, so never mind. We will see you next week. I do not remember who the guest is, but yeah, that'll round out February talking about sex. And that's it, y'all. Oh, next week we're talking about kinks.
Oh, you got the BDSM?
I just remembered who the guest is.
Is it Christian Grey?
No. She's a black lady, black LMFT that I found, and we are going to actually be talking about kinks and BDSM and all of that. That's so funny because I talked about it this morning. It's because my body remembered that I had remembered it a while ago when I was scheduling that. So stay tuned for that. That'll be a really interesting episode. And I think that's it. Stay tuned also when this episode drops either on Thursday or possibly the day before. I'll be running a flash sale for the conference. It'll only be 24 hours. So get your coins together so you can come. And that's it. Until the next time, thank you so much. Bye.